enjoy the show, and thank you for choosing Community Interest Video on Demand.
Hello and welcome to Letter of the Law. This is an award-winning program about the criminal justice system in the state of California and particularly in the city of Long Beach. It's brought to you by the Long Beach City Prosecutor's Office. I'm Tom Reeves, your Long Beach City Prosecutor. Today I'm joined in studio by Officer Paul LeBaron of the Long Beach Police Department's Narcotics Investigations Unit. And Paul's been a part of that unit and a part of the police department for several years. And before we get started discussing drugs and drugs investigations here in Long Beach, I wanted to ask Paul to give us a little bio about how he came to be working at the police department and what brought him into the narcotics section of the Long Beach Police Department. So Paul, why don't you tell our viewing audience a little bit about yourself and how you got your job?
Well, I have been a police officer almost 15 years in the city of Long Beach, and I've been a sergeant for about 7 of those years. I've worked in various assignments throughout the police department, including media relations, the field training program, and internal affairs. Now I'm working in the narcotics section. I've been there for about 3.5 years. And the whole reason that I came into the narcotics section is it's always been a place I've wanted to work. I believe you can make a really big difference, and the type of crimes that you're investigating and the type of people you're going after are very challenging, and it's very fulfilling when you're able to make a difference.
Well, we know that drugs are a scourge. We see the consequences of drug abuse all the time, and there's plenty of television about, you know, Miami Vice kind of TV shows with respect to drug abuse. But, you know, in terms of how we are organized to combat this, tell us a little bit about the narcotics unit in the police department. It's obviously a specialized unit. What kind of specialties are there, and how are the people organized?
Well, the unit's organized into it's part of a larger division, which I'll talk about in a second, but the narcotics section has 2 teams that work primarily in the city of Long Beach, and our focus is on impacting violent crime through the enforcement of narcotics-related crimes. Both teams pretty much have the same focus, which is we go after gang members, violent criminals, and drug dealers, and we've found that in most cases all 3 of those tend to fall into the same person many times. We work under the Gang Violent Crime Division, which includes such details as the gang unit, homicide, robbery, our career criminal apprehension team, our violent crime detail. And what we found several years ago is that, for example, if there was a murder, most of the times that murder had something to do with narcotics, or it had something to do with gang members. So what we started to do is we started to pool our resources. We pulled all of those units together, and we started working together within the same division so we could share information, share expertise, and ultimately solve the crimes a lot quicker and more efficiently.
And the organization of the Gangs and Violent Crime Unit, which includes the narcotics unit, is based on links that have been studied for years now between the use or abuse of narcotics, the money to purchase narcotics or obtained by selling narcotics, the thefts that are involved to get narcotics or the money to buy narcotics, and the protection of all of that in terms of it's my money and you're not going to get any, so I use violence to protect my money, my drugs, my turf. All of those things sort of link together, and that's why that Gangs and Violent Crime Unit includes all those subcomponents?
Yeah, that's really accurate. Narcotics is such a complex world. You have so many levels and so many layers from your top kingpins, which are dealing on an international level, all the way down to, like you said, the people that just use the drugs on the street. And everywhere in between there's a myriad of problems that comes from each type of person. But in any case, almost every one of those is impacting people in their neighborhoods and in their homes.
I recently saw a cable television show called Weeds. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it romanticizes drug dealing. They focus on marijuana sales, but it romanticizes it, and they joke about people walking around with guns in their kitchens while they parcel out marijuana or other drugs for sale in suburbia. And, you know, I understand that, you know, in Hollywood they have all kinds of license, but that's really not the kind of crime you're involved in investigating, where some suburban housewife is packaging marijuana to sell to her friends over a canasta.
Well, that's not necessarily our primary focus. However, we have found that many times, and there are cases like that. If you remember earlier last year, we did arrest a woman who was selling heroin in and around Wilson High School, and that was dubbed Operation Soccer Mom. And what we know about that case is maybe she wasn't your classic career violent criminal, but she was certainly linked to some people who were. She was linked to gang members, and she was interacting with them. So we know that even if the person isn't necessarily the one who's doing the shootings or out there carrying the guns, if we can take away one piece of that puzzle, it certainly weakens the more violent areas that they're surrounded by.
Now, in terms of the organization of the narcotics unit and other parts of gangs and violent crimes, what crimes specifically would be assigned to the narcotics unit, and how does that relate to, for instance, robbery or homicide?
Well, we deal with all kinds of different narcotics-related crimes. Some of the larger issues that we look at would be indoor marijuana grows, where there's large quantities of marijuana plants being grown outside the scope of the medicinal marijuana law. We look at meth labs, deal with any sort of methamphetamine lab or other clandestine labs, PCP labs, and some of the other things that people concoct in their garages and backyards. We also look at large organizations that are trafficking narcotics and guns and those sorts of things. And then we go all the way down to the stuff that's going on in the street, the people who are standing on the street corner, who are selling to people that just walk up, or the people that work off of a cell phone or a pager, and they get a call and they drive over and they deliver drugs to people. So nobody's really exempt from our focus.
Well, I recall, I think it was earlier this year, there was a front page story and actually national headlines about a drug bust that was initiated in Long Beach that reached all the way back to Colombia, I think, internationally, and it had to do with some guy in, I think it was like Pico Rivera or Hacienda Heights, who had connections here with gangs in Long Beach. Can you tell us a little bit about how did drugs in that kind of context with gangs and all of the other stuff, how do they fit into the puzzle? What piece would drugs be in the puzzle of violent crime that surrounds drugs, money, and money laundering?
Well, with that case in particular, it was interesting because it did have international implications. We know that the drugs were coming from Mexico, and when they came over from Mexico, it was an interesting case because we were able to track the drugs and follow them as they crossed the border and as they started changing hands from one suspect to another suspect, and they would come over and they were in the Riverside County area, and from there ultimately they found their way right here to Long Beach. And